Maya, what are you? Don't scream, don't make a sound. If they hear you, you won't leave this house alive.
She should have collapsed by now.
Are you sure you gave her enough?
I doubled the dose in her tea.
My tea? I told you. If they know you're here, you won't leave alive.
I came home early on Thanksgiving night, thinking I would surprise my husband. But before I could call his name, my housekeeper dragged me into the laundry room and pressed her hand over my mouth. "Don't make a sound," she whispered. "If they know you're here, you won't leave this house alive." Through the crack in the door, I saw my husband standing beside my sister. And then I heard him say the words that made my blood turn cold. She should have collapsed by now. I doubled the dose in her tea. My name is Eleanor Whitaker, 41 years old, CEO of Whitaker Industries. A woman most people in Seattle thought they had everything: money, power, a lakefront mansion, and a perfect marriage. That night, I had canceled a business trip to Chicago after a board call ended sooner than expected. Instead of calling ahead, I told my driver to drop me 2 blocks from the house. I wanted to walk in quietly, place my coat over Daniel's shoulders, and remind him that I still knew how to be a wife, not just a woman in charge of a company. The mansion stood beside Lake Washington, glowing with warm golden lights. From the outside, it looked peaceful, too peaceful. The moment I stepped inside, I knew something was wrong. There was no music, no sound of dinner, no laughter from the kitchen. Only the low hum of the heating system and a strange, bitter smell hanging in the hallway. It smelled like crushed medicine mixed with the lavender candles Daniel always bought for me. Daniel Whitaker, my husband, was 44, charming in public, handsome in a polished, expensive way. The kind of man who could make strangers trust him before he finished a sentence. I called his name softly, "Daniel." Before I could take another step, someone rushed out from the side hall. A hand clamped over my mouth. I tried to scream, but the sound died against her palm. Another hand gripped my arm and pulled me hard into the laundry room. The door closed almost completely, leaving only a narrow crack of light. It was Maya Brooks, my housekeeper. She was a black woman in her late 30s, quiet, observant, always dressed in a neat gray uniform. I had seen her every day for 6 years, but in that moment, I realized I had never truly looked at her. Her eyes were wide with terror. "Don't make a sound," she whispered, "if you want to live." My heart slammed against my ribs. Through the crack in the door, I saw Daniel enter the kitchen. Beside him stood Vanessa Hart, my older sister, elegant, sharp-faced, always dressed like she was walking into a boardroom instead of a family dinner. She had spent years smiling beside me while secretly resenting everything I inherited from our father. Daniel held my evening teacup. Vanessa stared at it and whispered, "She should have collapsed by now." Daniel's voice was cold. "I doubled the dose this afternoon." Maya's fingers tightened around my wrist, and suddenly, the bitter smell in my house made perfect sense. I stood frozen in the dark laundry room, Maya's hand still locked around my wrist. Through the narrow crack in the door, I watched Daniel set my teacup on the kitchen island as if it were just another part of our perfect Thanksgiving table. The cup was white porcelain with a gold rim, the same one he used every night when he made my chamomile tea. For weeks, I had believed that little ritual was love. Now, hearing him say he had doubled the dose, I felt something inside me break quietly. Vanessa folded her arms and stared toward the hallway. She was still clear enough to sign the lakefront merger papers this morning, she said. Her voice carried no sisterly concern, only irritation. If she signed those documents before the board meeting, this becomes harder. Daniel leaned against the counter, calm and clean-shaven, wearing the soft smile he showed donors and reporters. "Relax," he said. By tomorrow, she won't be in any condition to explain what she signed or what she refused to sign. That was when the last several weeks returned to me in pieces. The headaches that came after dinner, the nights I woke drenched in sweat, the way my hand trembled when I held a pen. I had blamed stress, age, and exhaustion. Daniel had blamed them too, gently, lovingly, always, while placing tea beside my bed. I remembered Vanessa touching my shoulder during meetings, telling people I was not myself lately. At the time, I thought she was protecting me. Now I understood she was preparing witnesses. I tried to pull away from Maya. Every part of me wanted to burst through the door and demand the truth. Maya tightened her grip and shook her head once. Her face was pale with fear, but her eyes were steady. "No," she breathed against my ear. "If you walk out now, they win." I stared at her, furious and shaking. "They're poisoning me," I whispered. Maya nodded. "And if you accuse them without proof, they'll say the poison already damaged your mind." In the kitchen, Vanessa opened a leather folder and slid papers across the island. "Dr. Keller's letter is ready," she said. "Memory loss, paranoia, emotional instability, enough for emergency review." Daniel tapped the folder with one finger. "My attorney says if the board accepts she's incapacitated, her voting control can be suspended." Vanessa smiled slightly. "And I become interim chair." My stomach turned cold. They were not only trying to kill me, they were trying to erase me before I died. Maya slowly released my wrist, then showed me a small photo on her phone. It was my bedroom tray from 2 nights earlier. My teacup sat beside a spoon, and at the bottom of the cup was a thin white residue. "I took pictures," Maya whispered. "Every time the tea looked wrong." I looked from the photo to the crack in the door, where my husband and sister stood beneath warm Thanksgiving lights. For the first time in my life, I did not feel powerful. I felt hunted. Maya did not give me time to fall apart. The moment Daniel and Vanessa's voices faded toward the dining room, she opened the laundry room door just wide enough for us to slip through. "Head down," she whispered. "Walk like you belong back here." I followed her through the service hallway, past stacked linens, silver trays, and the back staircase I had probably passed 1,000 times without noticing. Every light in my own house suddenly felt like a spotlight. Every camera in the ceiling felt like an eye. At the staff exit, I reached for my phone, but Maya caught my hand before I could unlock it. "No," she said. "Your husband can track that." I stared at her. "Daniel doesn't have access to my phone." Maya's expression did not change. "Mrs. Whitaker, he has access to your house, your cars, your calendar, your medicine, and your tea." The words landed harder than a slap. Slowly, I handed her my phone. Then she pointed at my wrist. The watch, too. I unclasped it with shaking fingers, feeling like I was removing the last proof that I was still Eleanor Whitaker. We did not take my car. Maya said the garage cameras would record us, and every Whitaker vehicle had tracking software installed. Instead, she led me through a narrow garden path behind the guest house and into the cold Thanksgiving rain. Her old blue sedan was parked beside a maintenance shed, nearly hidden behind wet hedges. I looked back once at the mansion glowing by the lake. Inside, my husband and sister were probably still planning how to explain my collapse. Outside, I was running from the life everyone envied. Maya drove without turning on the radio. She took side streets, then a bridge, then roads I barely recognized. "Where are we going?" I asked. "Rainier Valley," she said. "My place." I had signed checks for community projects in that neighborhood, posed for photos there, smiled beside children I never learned by name. But as Maya parked behind a small apartment building with peeling paint and a broken porch light, I realized I had never truly been there. Not really. Not as a person who needed shelter. Her apartment was small, warm, and painfully neat. A fold-out couch sat beneath a shelf of school trophies. A second-hand dining table held 2 plates, one covered with foil. On the wall was a photo of Maya with a teenage boy in a navy blazer, both smiling proudly. "My son," she said when she saw me looking. "Noah Brooks, 17, too smart for his own good." Her voice softened, then hardened. "Daniel removed him from the Whitaker Foundation scholarship last spring." I turned to her, stunned. Maya opened a drawer and pulled out a folder worn at the edges. "Noah found numbers that didn't match in the foundation's charity reports," she said. "He asked questions. A week later, Daniel called him ungrateful and cut him from the program." Shame rose in my chest so fast I could barely breathe. My name was on that foundation. My signature was on those letters. And I had never known. Maya placed a blanket over my shoulders and said, Tonight, you see the house you built. Tomorrow, maybe you'll see the people it stepped on. I was sitting on Maya's fold-out couch with a blanket around my shoulders when the first wave of weakness hit me again. My fingers trembled so badly I could barely hold the glass of water she had given me. Maya moved around the apartment quietly, checking the curtains, locking the windows, watching the alley through a thin gap in the blinds. I wanted to tell her she was being too careful. Then headlights swept across the wall. A car rolled slowly into the alley and stopped near the back fence. Maya turned off the small kitchen lamp. The apartment fell into shadows. Through the blinds, I saw the white side of a police cruiser and the gold lettering on the door. My stomach tightened. A tall man stepped out, broad-shouldered, wearing a dark sheriff's jacket and a calm expression that did not reach his eyes. Colin Reeves was the King County Sheriff, a polished public servant in his 50s, the kind of man who shook hands firmly at charity events and remembered every donor's name. I had written checks for his community outreach campaign. I had stood beside him in photographs. He knocked once on Maya's door. Not hard, not polite either. "Maya Brooks," he called. "Open up. I know you're home." Maya did not move. Reeves tried again, softer. "Mrs. Whitaker's husband is worried. Daniel says Eleanor is confused, possibly sick. I'm here to take her somewhere safe." I felt my body lean toward the door out of habit. Police meant help. Authority meant order. But Maya grabbed my wrist before I could stand. "Listen to what he said," she whispered. "He didn't ask if you were safe. He said what Daniel told him to say." Her eyes stayed on the door. "A real officer would ask you what happened. A bought man repeats the buyer's story." Reeves knocked again, this time harder. "Maya, hiding her only makes this worse. Daniel doesn't want trouble for you." The way he said Daniel's name made the room colder. Maya pulled me toward the back door. As we moved through the kitchen, she finally told me what she had been holding back. "2 weeks ago, I heard Daniel on the phone in your study," she whispered. "He said if you resisted, Reeves could help move you into a private treatment facility, somewhere quiet, somewhere controlled." My knees nearly gave out. A treatment facility was not rescue. It was a cage with medical paperwork. We slipped out into the rain behind the apartment building. Maya kept one arm around me while we moved between fences, trash bins, and parked cars. Behind us, Reeves's voice rose at the front door. "Maya, don't be stupid." We did not answer. We walked 4 blocks through cold rain until a small brick church appeared at the corner, its cross glowing softly in the window. Maya knocked 3 times. An older black man with silver hair and tired, kind eyes opened the door. Pastor Samuel Reed looked at Maya, then at me, and stepped aside without asking a single question. Pastor Samuel Reed led us through the side hallway of the church and into a small meeting room behind the sanctuary. The room smelled of old wood, coffee, and rain-soaked coats. He gave me a chair near the heater while Maya stood by the door, still listening for footsteps outside. Pastor Samuel was in his early 60s, a calm, broad-shouldered man with silver hair and a voice that made panic feel smaller. He did not ask for details first. He simply looked at my trembling hands and said, "Before we fight the truth, we make sure you survive it." Within 20 minutes, a woman arrived through the side entrance carrying a medical bag. Grace Miller was a nurse in her early 40s with tired blue eyes, short brown hair, and the steady expression of someone who had seen fear in many forms. Pastor Samuel introduced her as a woman he trusted with his life. Grace checked my pulse, my temperature, my pupils, and the slight tremor in my fingers. When she asked what I had consumed regularly, I said, "Herbal tea, every night." My own voice sounded like it belonged to someone else. Maya then pulled a folded tissue from inside her coat. Hidden inside was a tiny plastic bag of white powder she had taken from the trash at my mansion. "I found this after Mrs. Whitaker's tea tray was cleared," Maya said. Daniel told the kitchen staff it was a sleep supplement. Grace's face tightened. She put on gloves, separated a small amount into a vial, then pricked my finger for a blood sample. I watched the red bead form on my skin and felt strangely grateful for pain. Pain meant I was still alive. Grace used a small testing kit from her bag. It was not a full lab, she warned us, but it was enough to show danger. After several minutes, she looked up. "This appears consistent with a sedative compound," she said carefully. "Taken repeatedly, it could cause confusion, slowed heart rate, weakness, memory gaps. In a larger dose, it could be life-threatening." Maya closed her eyes. Pastor Samuel lowered his head. I did not cry. I was too cold inside. That was when I understood the trap. Daniel and Vanessa did not need me dead immediately. They only needed me weak enough to doubt myself, strange enough for others to doubt me, and silent enough for them to take control. "This isn't enough," I said. "They'll say Maya planted it. They'll say I'm paranoid." Grace did not argue. Pastor Samuel leaned forward and asked, "Is there anything in that house they don't know about?" I thought of my father, Arthur Whitaker, the man who built our company from a boat repair warehouse into a national empire. He had been warm with workers, ruthless with liars, and suspicious of Daniel from the first dinner. Before he died, he installed a private backup camera system in my study, separate from the mansion security. I had almost forgotten it existed. Then I remembered the letter he left in my desk drawer. "Don't fear the enemy outside your door. Fear the one who knows the code to your house." I looked at Maya and whispered, "There may be a drive in my office." Pastor Samuel's church van smelled like old carpet, rainwater, and hymn books. I sat in the back seat with a loose black coat around my shoulders, a knit cap pulled low over my hair, and a medical mask covering half my face. I barely recognized myself in the dark window. Maya sat beside me, one hand gripping the door handle, her eyes constantly checking the mirrors. Pastor Samuel drove without headlights for the first few yards, then turned onto the quiet street. None of us spoke until the lakefront mansions began appearing through the rain. We parked 2 blocks away from my house. From that distance, the mansion looked beautiful, glowing against the water like a Christmas card. But I knew what waited inside. Maya touched my arm and whispered, "Only the drive, nothing else." I nodded, though my hands were already shaking. We moved through the side garden, ducking beneath wet hedges until we reached the service entrance. Maya entered the staff code. For one terrible second, the keypad blinked red. Then it turned green, and the door clicked open. Inside, the staff hallway was colder than I remembered. We passed the laundry room where everything had begun, then moved toward my private study. Every framed family photo on the wall felt like an accusation. Maya opened doors only when necessary. Pastor Samuel stayed behind us, listening for movement. When we reached my study, I pulled the painting of my father away from the wall and found the hidden panel behind it. My fingers trembled so badly, I entered the code wrong the first time. The safe opened on the second try. Inside were old contracts, my father's letters, and a small black backup drive. I grabbed it and pressed it into Maya's palm. Before she could hide it, footsteps sounded in the hall. Maya pulled me behind the heavy velvet curtains near the window. Pastor Samuel slipped behind the bookcase shadow. The study door opened. Daniel walked in first, his tie loosened, his face sharp with anger. Vanessa followed, holding a leather folder against her chest. "She's not at the housekeeper's apartment," Daniel said. Vanessa's voice was colder than the rain outside. Then we moved faster. "Reeves can say she became violent and unstable. Dr. Keller will confirm she needs private treatment." Daniel laughed under his breath. "Once she's admitted, the board won't wait. You'll become interim chair and I'll control her shares through the incapacity clause." Vanessa placed the folder on my desk. I already used her signature on 3 internal approvals. No one questioned it. My stomach turned as I heard the final piece. Then Maya's phone vibrated once, almost silently. She glanced down. A message from Noah appeared. Vanessa forged Eleanor's signature on foundation transfer documents. I found the files in the old server. Maya showed me the screen. In that dark corner of my own study, with my husband and sister standing only feet away, I understood something clearly. They had not just planned to destroy me tonight. They had been stealing my name long before they tried to take my life. By the time we reached downtown Seattle, the rain had turned the streets silver. The emergency shareholders meeting was being held inside the Grand Meridian Hotel, a glass tower where Whitaker Industries hosted investor dinners, charity galas, and all the polished lies powerful people told under chandeliers. I sat in the back of the church van, the camera drive hidden inside Maya's coat while Pastor Samuel circled the block twice. My body still felt weak, but my mind had never been clearer. I was not walking into that hotel to beg anyone to believe me. I was walking in to take my name back. Inside the ballroom, Daniel and Vanessa had already built their stage. Through a side entrance, I saw rows of shareholders, board members, attorneys, and reporters facing a screen with my company logo glowing behind the podium. Daniel stood near the front, looking exhausted in the exact way a worried husband should look. Vanessa wore a navy suit and a pearl necklace, every inch the grieving sister preparing to save the company. On the table beside them sat a folder labeled Emergency Leadership Transition. Noah was waiting near the audio booth. Noah Brooks was Maya's 17-year-old son, tall, thin, sharp-eyed, wearing a borrowed blazer that was too big in the shoulders. He looked nervous, but his fingers moved across the control panel with quiet confidence. Beside him stood Grace Miller, the nurse who had tested my blood, holding a sealed medical envelope. Maya handed Noah the backup drive and whispered, "Only when she gives the signal." Noah nodded once. For a boy Daniel had tried to silence, he looked remarkably ready to be heard. Vanessa stepped to the microphone. Due to my sister Eleanor's sudden disappearance and worsening mental instability, she began, the board must consider temporary leadership measures. That was when I walked through the side doors. The ballroom went silent so quickly I heard someone gasp. Daniel turned first, his face emptied, then refilled with false relief. "Eleanor," he said, rushing toward me with open arms. I stepped back before he could touch me. My voice carried across the room. "Don't touch me. The last time you reached for me, there was poison in your hand." A wave of whispers moved through the ballroom. Daniel froze. Vanessa's smile cracked. I turned to the shareholders. "You were told I was unstable," I said. "You were told I disappeared. The truth is, I came home early and heard my husband and my sister discussing how much poison they had put in my tea." Vanessa snapped. "She's sick. This proves it." I looked toward the audio booth. "Noah," I said, "now." The ballroom screen changed. First came the video from my study system. Daniel in my kitchen, measuring white powder into my teacup while Vanessa watched. Then Grace's test results appeared beside it, showing the compound found in my blood. Next came the forged documents Noah had pulled from the old server, each one carrying a version of my signature I had never written. Finally, the speakers played Vanessa's recorded call with Sheriff Reeves, discussing how to move me into private treatment before I could make trouble. Cameras rose across the room. Reporters stood. 2 federal agents near the back exchanged a look and moved forward. Daniel and Vanessa had built a stage to bury me. Instead, Noah turned it into the place where the truth became impossible to deny. The first arrest happened before Daniel could finish pretending to be innocent. Two federal agents stepped onto the stage from opposite sides, calm and silent, while the ballroom remained frozen beneath the chandeliers. Daniel lifted both hands and laughed once, like this was some misunderstanding that money could smooth over. Vanessa did not laugh. Her face twisted with panic as one agent took the folder from the podium and another read her rights. Near the rear exit, Sheriff Colin Reeves tried to slip behind a row of reporters, but Pastor Samuel pointed straight at him. Reeves stopped, his badge shining under the ballroom lights, just before an agent seized his arm. Vanessa broke first. "This company should have been mine," she screamed as they cuffed her. I spent my whole life standing beside her while everyone praised Eleanor. Father gave her everything: the name, the chair, the empire. Her voice cracked, but there was no regret in it, only rage. Daniel immediately turned on her. "She planned this," he said, pointing at my sister. "Vanessa hated Eleanor. I only did what she told me." For one second, I almost recognized the man I married. Polished, cowardly, always reaching for the safest lie. Then Noah raised his hand from the audio booth. "There's one more file," he called. His voice shook, but he did not lower it. The ballroom speakers crackled. Daniel's voice filled the room from a second recording, clear and cold. "We don't wait for Eleanor to lose control. We make her weak first, small doses, then one final dose when the documents are ready." The silence after that was heavier than any scream. Daniel's face went gray. Vanessa stopped fighting. Even the reporters stood still, as if the truth had taken the air out of the room. I walked to the microphone with Maya beside me. She tried to step back, but I reached for her hand and held it where everyone could see. "This woman saved my life," I said. Not because she was paid to, not because anyone protected her. She did it because she saw evil and refused to look away. Maya's eyes filled with tears, but her chin stayed high. I turned to the board. As of tonight, Maya Brooks no longer works in my house. She will serve as director of the Whitaker Employee Protection Fund, with full authority to investigate workplace abuse, threats, retaliation, and corruption. Then I looked toward Noah. He stood near the screen in that oversized blazer, trying not to smile. "And Noah Brooks," I said, "will have his scholarship restored immediately. He will also join Whitaker Industries as a technology intern, if he still wants anything to do with us after what we allowed to happen." The room gave a soft, stunned laugh. Noah looked at his mother. Maya nodded through her tears. "I do," he said. Weeks later, I returned to the lakefront mansion for the last time, not to sleep there, not to forgive the walls, only to empty my father's safe before the sale. Behind the same hidden panel, beneath old contracts and yellowed photographs, I found a second letter in his handwriting. My hands trembled as I opened it. family is not always the person who shares your blood, he had written. Family is the one who stands in front of you when the world wants you to fall. I sat on the floor of my study and cried, not because I had lost my home, but because I finally understood what home was supposed to mean. I sold the mansion before spring. The money became the Whitaker Safe Voice Fund, built for workers who had been ignored, threatened, underpaid, or silenced by powerful people. On the next Thanksgiving, I did not sit under crystal chandeliers. I sat at a small wooden table in Maya's new home with Pastor Samuel saying grace and Noah teasing his mother about burning the rolls. There were no fake smiles, no poison tea, no perfect family portrait hiding rot underneath. Just truth, gratitude. And the first real family dinner I had ever known. Looking back now, I realize the most dangerous betrayal does not always come from an enemy outside your door. Sometimes it comes from the person who makes your tea, smiles at your table, and calls it love. I had money, power, and a beautiful home, but none of it saved me. The person who saved my life was the woman I had overlooked for years. So tell me, if you were me, would you forgive Daniel if he begged for mercy? Or would you let him face every consequence? Would you still call Vanessa family because she was your sister? Or would you cut her out of your life forever? And what about Maya? Would you give her a new position in your company? Or would you give her something even bigger, a place in your real family? Comment your choice below. I truly want to know what you would have done in my place. And if this story touched you, please like this video and subscribe to the channel for more powerful, emotional, and unforgettable stories.